Hey everyone, welcome back to Next Up Live. If you haven't been with us before, this is a show where I get to interview the fine people of NXTsoft. We look a little bit behind the scenes at some of the stuff going on in the industries of cybersecurity and fintech. Today is cyber. And I have with me Steve Hines. Steve is the co-founder of ThreatAdvice by NXTsoft. And I've known Steve now for several years. And when I think about the state of cybersecurity, I can't think of a better person to talk to than Steve Hines. Steve, thanks for joining me.
Hey, glad to, man. Thank you.
So, Steve, I know that you have been in the cyber world for a while. To me, you were one of those guys that was like on the cyber wire long before uh, most other people that I know. And I know that you live in that world, you follow the news, you have a lot of contacts in that industry. So I want to talk today about the state of cybersecurity. Here we are, 2021. What does it look like? What's the current state of cybersecurity? Why is it such a big issue?
Good question. In that question, I kind of like to start back about 5 or 10 years ago, and you think about what security was then. Pretty much limited from a corporate standpoint to your IT folks. Hopefully, they have a handle on it, and it's something at most you would hear about once a year in a one-day seminar, and that was it. Well, fast forward over the last few years, if you think about what's happened with technology, I mean, insane amounts of new technology coming out. You think about Apple Pay, or you think about cloud, or you think about Internet of Things devices like Ring doorbells, Nest thermostats, security cameras, almost you name it. And so the onslaught of new technologies has made cybersecurity a lot more apropos for everybody. And so now, with all of the different security risks and things to consider, it's become something that we all really have to be concerned with. And I think it's only going to get more and more so. You hear about 5G, and people are kind of like, well, great, my phone's going to work better. But really, 5G is a big, big deal because it's increasing the capacity of the internet basically by a lot. And so we're going to see, talking about Internet of Things devices, more and more, billions more over the next few years. And all of those represent access points for bad guys. So it's a constant moving, evolving target that to me only becomes more and more of a concern for organizations today.
Absolutely. This seems like a classic case of where we've like our reach, it goes far beyond our grasp of actually keeping things secure. And technology is so bent upon move fast and break things that we're way ahead of ourselves in terms of the technology, but we haven't thought about, it seems like security is often an afterthought. And that's obviously a huge
Yes.
issue. Um,
Yes.
so who are the main threat actors in this scene? Who are the bad guys?
Um, when I think about a question like that, in kind of tongue in cheek, I always think about some Russian kid sitting in his mom's basement eating pizza and, hacking away at a computer, or, the Saudi Arabian prince that wants me to claim my $12 million prize or whatever. That's kind of, funny way what a lot of people think about in terms of threat actors. But it's been amazing to me, Ben, to see over just even the last 3 or 4 years the how much the crime and the efficiency of the criminals has improved and evolved. So I would say two main groups I'll mention. Number one would be organized crime. So you think it how lucrative ransomware is, and how difficult it is to be caught. So you got all these organized crime syndications that are between business email compromise and ransomware and all the different ways they can make money. They're making probably trillions, literally, of dollars, and almost have zero chance or very little chance to get caught. So it's become a big thing for organized crime, and it's become so much of a thing. there's actually something now called crime as a service. So you think of software as a service where you can, have a subscription and have whatever software, monthly. Crime as a service, if I'm a non-technical person, can go on the dark web and actually engage the technical people that know how to launch a cyber attack, and they have help desks, they have 800 numbers, they have starter packets and all that. So even if I don't know personally how to launch a cyber attack, I can make that happen through crime as a service, and then I pay them a fee out of whatever is gained from that. So from an organized crime standpoint, terrifying. Maybe more terrifying is nation states. You think about Russia, North Korea, Iran, and mainly China. I think China is our biggest security threat in the world, between stealing our IP and just having access to a lot of our networks that we don't even know they have access to. So from a nation state standpoint, that's terrifying. I personally, and I don't know this for sure, but I personally think our next world war will be fought as a cyber war. Because if you think about it, if China can or Russia can shut down our financial markets or can shut down all the power grids on the eastern seaboard, that brings us to our knees. That's a lot more effective than boots on the ground, hand-to-hand combat, things like that. So the nation states are really a big concern.
And by the way, just not to interrupt you too much here, but you're talking about scenarios that could actually happen in real life. This is not some kind of sci-fi, fear mongering.
Absolutely.
This is actually something that could happen.
I think it could happen today. I personally, maybe I'm paranoid because I live in this all the time, but I think those actors, some of the nation states, already have access to some of our important infrastructure grids and so forth, and could probably launch it today. And thinking a little bit more about this, Frank Abagnale, who you've met, who's the subject of the movie Catch Me If You Can, and he's our company spokesperson. Super cool guy. He's known as the father of social engineering, and he's kind of Elvis, as I say, in security. And I remember one time talking with Frank, and I said, "Where do you see cybersecurity going over the next few years?" And he said something that was really ominous. He said, "I see it going dark." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "I think it'll still be about the money, but it's also going to be about meanness and just, darkness." And a couple weeks ago, if you saw during Super Bowl weekend, a Florida City water treatment plant was infiltrated by a bad guy, and they were going to poison the water. And they had it set up to do that, and luckily it was caught in time. But that's the kind of thing that I think more and more is going to happen. And if you think about medical devices in hospitals, they're internet connected. If you've got a IV pump or you've got a heart monitor on your whatever your heart situation is, those kind of things, as the world gets meaner, seemingly, Frank thought that would become more and more of an issue. So that makes it even more of a threat. One other thing, you think about hospitals that are breached. We had a hospital in our home state of Alabama that was breached like a year or so ago. And for, I think, a week, they had to divert all ER patients to another hospital that was, 60 miles away or a good long way away. And you think about that's people's lives. They're having to wait another hour to get to the ER, and they're in an ambulance. And so it's a scary proposition for sure. Backing up from that just a little bit, if you think corporately, how does this affect me? If I'm a corporation or organization, if you get breached at that level, you of course have your downtime for operations, which is very costly. You have, if you're a bank or if you're under HIPAA or live in the states that are starting to take this really seriously, like New York and California, you have regulatory concerns. You've got breach notification. People think breach notification is just kind of the standard thing. It is really expensive. You've got reputational risk, you've got legal costs, you may get sued by trial lawyers. And so whether you're a small, um, 5-person shop with a network, or you're the United States of America, you've got to take it really seriously.
Absolutely. I was thinking, as you're talking about kind of the business side of this, both on the side of the attackers and on the side of defending yourselves against them. I remember hearing this stat that I looked up while you were talking that just astounded me. I mean, and I know that you know this, but for the sake of our viewers, this line, what big business now makes more money per year than Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, and Walmart combined? And the answer is cybercrime. Wow.
Yes.
So
And that frames it up how big of an issue this is.
it's big business. So speaking of business, though, what industries are most at risk in this landscape?
I like to say that cybercrime is an equal opportunity uh, gig. You always think about two industries really: medical and financial. Financial because they have a lot of money. Medical because medical records are really valuable. But in our business at ThreatAdvice, we engage with companies from nonprofits to schools to trucking companies to manufacturers, and it's almost a situation where nobody is safe. And it's easy to feel safe if you're in kind of an industry it's not talked about a lot, but really the path of least resistance is what the bad guys look for. And so if you're a law firm, for instance, and you're spending the time trying to bill hours or settle cases, whatever, and so time is money, and you don't want to spend too much time and effort on security, you're a sitting duck. So I mentioned trucking. We see that as all the time being attacked. I work a lot with K through 12 schools, and it's crazy how much of a target they are for the bad guys. And then small to medium businesses is something else I would mention. It's easy to think, well, Target's going to be who the target is, or Walmart, or Bear Stearns, or well, maybe that's not a good example. Citibank or whoever it is. The SMBs are probably over half of the attacks are on SMBs, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, they typically don't have the security people in place to really be able to fend it off, so they're kind of low hanging fruit. And the bad thing about that, in back to the breach cost, I've seen stats over half of small to medium businesses that get breached end up going out of business. So it's all over the board where these bad guys are finding fruit for their labor.
Yeah, sure. So I mean that's all a bit overwhelming, but what's the
It
good? Like
is.
what can people actually do something to mitigate this risk, to mitigate the damage? What can each and every person in their business do about that?
Yeah, having coached sports a lot in my life, I always kind of refer back to Duke basketball doing dribbling drills. And you think, why has Krzyzewski been so successful, or why is Nick Saban so successful? It's because they do the little things every day, and it's not, let's have a game-winning 3-point shot. Let's work on our dribbling. And so I look at security in a lot of ways like that, even though you need to be able to hit the game winning shot. And so a few things that any organization can do is pretty simple. One, educate your employees. That's something we do at ThreatAdvice. But back to Frank Abagnale, I asked him one time, what's the biggest risk of it for any organization? He said, far and away, it's your employees. So you better educate them just on the basic non-technical aspects of cybersecurity. So that's a big one. Also, back to the dribbling and so on. Multi-factor authentication, big one. Just simple, but use it. Don't be lazy with it. Things like segmenting your network, access controls. You don't want everybody in your company able to access every part of your network. They don't need it. Of course, next gen firewall, good endpoint protection, and those kind of things that everybody knows. A big one, have a good incident response plan in place, because if you have a fire, you better have been through a fire drill, because you'll be a lot more efficient in what to do in the fire. Same thing with a breach. If you wait until you get breached, and almost not everybody's going to decide what to do, you're in a world of hurt. Time is of the essence. Literally every minute counts if you've been breached in terms of beginning your recovery. So have a plan, know who's going to do what if it happens, and practice that plan. Uh, I can't emphasize that enough. Couple more things. Have somebody full time looking at your security, no matter what size you are. We see a lot of companies that have really good IT people that don't have a security background. So you need to have somebody that's championing and quarterbacking your security. If you can't hire somebody full time, find another alternative. For instance, we have something called virtual CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, where we act as CISOs for people. But whatever your solution is, make sure somebody's watching over it all the time, because it's not a part-time thing to be concerned with. Cyber insurance, really important. People need to have cyber insurance, because if you do get breached, the costs are astronomical. I saw something online, and I take some stats with a grain of salt, but I saw the average breach cost was $3.9 million. That's not something people can really withstand themselves. So I guess in summary, do the standard blocking and tackling, dribbling things you should do, and have somebody championing your security and watching over it all the time.
Great. I love the football and basketball analogies.
Oh,
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. That's
I didn't want to
encouraging.
say too much about Nick Saban, because some people don't like him, but I had to throw him in there.
We know where your allegiances lie, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your time, Steve. That's really, really helpful. I'll just say to anyone watching, if you want to know more, check out, go to NXTsoft.com, go to cybersecurity. You can learn all about ThreatAdvice and the solutions that we offer there. Steve mentioned some. Definitely have a plan in place, have a solution, have someone who's the quarterback. These are things that everyone can check off the list for very real threats. And if you have a comment or a question for Steve or for me, leave it below, and we'll get back to you. Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Good to see you, man. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
You too.
Bye.